On the day after the new National Planning Policy Framework, the NPPF, is published, I'm here with James Fennell, Managing Director of NLP, also the RTPI Planning Consultancy of the Year, to get his views on the significance of the framework and his thoughts on how business should be responding. So Jim, the government promised to significantly reduce the amount of planning guidance. Has it delivered on that promise?
Yes, it has. Over 1,000 pages of government policy and guidance has been distilled to less than 60 pages in the final document. The government has certainly delivered on that front. This light touch leaves local planning authorities, communities and developers to determine what this means at local level. And I think this means in turn there will be more flexibility, and more flexibility means potentially more opportunity. I think our role as consultants is to identify where those opportunities lie and pursue them for our clients.
The draft attracted a great deal of interest. Now published, why is this document so important?
Well, from a planning perspective, it's very important because it provides the framework within which every development plan will have to be formulated in the future, and it also provides the framework within which every planning decision will be made. I think as far as the wider public are concerned, since the issuing of the draft NPPF, the planning has been in the news almost on a daily basis. Yesterday, we understand, when the NPPF was launched, it was one of the top 5 subjects on which people were tweeting about on Twitter, and also one of the top 5 stories on the BBC website. So that just goes to reflect the wider public interest there is now in planning.
The government's been at great pains to stress that the NPPF will deliver economic growth. Do you think that the published document achieves this?
Yes, I think it does. The planning system, most importantly, must now operate on the foundation of a presumption in favour of sustainable development. The Chancellor, in his budget statement earlier this week, was very clear that the government wants to create the right conditions for growth, and this means a planning system which serves to create jobs and build new homes. And early in the NPPF, it stresses that, this is quite important, it says every effort, and I stress that, every effort must be made to identify and meet the development needs of an area. And that theme is repeated in several places throughout the document.
So will that override all other considerations?
No, the necessary checks and balances are in place in the document. The government referred to sustainable development, and those 2 words are very important. And what that means is that the social, environmental and economic dimensions or objectives must all form part of a balanced decision-making process.
Following the draft, there were lots of calls to strengthen the definition of sustainable development. Has that happened?
There's certainly more on sustainable development and the definition of sustainable development in the final version, but I'm not sure it's that much clearer. Reference is made to the very well respected famous UN or Brundtland definition, as it's often referred to, and to the later definitions within the UK Sustainable Development Strategy. But these are all quite general in nature. So what the NPPF then says is that sustainable development will be defined by the totality of the document, or by 212 paragraphs of the NPPF. And I think our role, acting for clients, is to determine what sustainable development means and define that term in the context of each and every planning application or we submit, or job that we're working on.
It'll be interesting to see how it pans out in both plan and decision-making processes. There must be some other familiar themes which have translated across from the old to the new published NPPF. What are these?
Yeah, there certainly are. Some examples. Planning remains very much a plan-led system, and I think that is supported by everyone. The town centre first emphasis remains very much as before, and again, that's as expected. Local planning authorities must still demonstrate a 5-year housing supply, and the importance of good design is reiterated in the NPPF.
The draft document was debated extensively. What other changes have been made from that draft?
There's quite a few changes, a few certainly worthy of further examination. Perhaps the one most likely to be talked about, certainly so far it is about the omission of the default answer to development being yes, where there isn't a development plan or it's out of date. That's gone and it's been replaced with what the government, I think, would describe as more considered wording, but it's still a positive policy stance that's been put in its place. Over and above the 5-year housing supply, local planning authorities in the draft, it was proposed, had to have a 20% additional buffer. That's now been reduced to 5%, except where there's been a record of persistent under-delivery when it would revert back to 20%. And the much expected reference to encouraging the reuse of brownfield sites is included within the final document, except for back gardens, which are not now so defined.
And finally, what messages will NLP be giving its clients in the wider development industry?
I think the overarching message that we want to give to clients in the wider development industry is that this is a very genuine attempt by government to change how planning works and to begin to change the culture of the planning industry. We certainly feel that the door is now firmly open to developers, but those who understand and respect the social, environmental and economic aspects of sustainability, and also to those who are able to articulate that to local communities and to local planning authorities.